Feluda bowed his hands folded in a namaskar and said in his thin old man voice, um, excuse me, are you Mr. Produldatto? Yes, but Mr. Datto replied without smiling. I'm Joyner and Bagji, and this is my nephew Subodh. Why have you brought him? You said nothing about a nephew on the phone. No, but you see, he's written started to paint and is very interested in the art. So, Mr. Datta said nothing more. He rose to his feet. Um, I don't mind looking at these things, but I had to put everything away because of this whitewashing, and now every little piece has yet to be dragged out. That wasn't easy, I can tell you. As it is, I have been going for the berserk and the workman pushing and sewing all my furnitures all day. The smell of the pen makes me sick. I will be glad when the whole thing's over. Anyway, come inside, please. I didn't like the brusque way in which he spoke, but once inside his drawing room on the first floor, my mouth fell open in amazement. His collection seems larger than Nilmoni Babu's. You seem to have a gathering lot of things from Egypt, remarked Feluda. Yes, I have brought something it is in Cairo and others bought locally. Look, Subodh, my boy, Feluda said, laying a hand on my back and giving me a sharp pinch quite unbrusquely. See all these animals. The Egyptians used to worship these gods. The owl here, the hawk over there, and even these birds were gods for them. Mr. Datta sat on a sofa and lit a cheroot. I don't know what possessed me, but I suddenly found myself saying, Uncle, didn't you have a god that looked like a jackal? Mr. Datta choked. Yes, cheroot, he said after a while, coughing. You can't get our good quality stuff anymore in this. It never used to be so strong. Feluda ignored this remark. He said in his thin voice, my nephew is talking of the Anubis. I told him about the Anubis last night. Mr. Datta flared and unexpectedly. Hey, Anubis! Hey, stupid fool! Feluda stared at him, though his glasses were not incompetent to see those. I don't understand, he complained. Oh, why are you calling an Egyptian god a stupid fool? No, not Anubis. Okay, I see that man. I have seen him from at the occasion, and he is an idiot. His beating makes no sense at all. They were all lovely statues, you see, but he quoted a figure so absurdly high that I had to draw. God knows where he gets some kind of money from them. Feluda said nothing in reply. He glanced around the room once more and then said, no, Namaskar. Again, thank you very much, he added, moving towards the door through which we had come. It was really very kind of you. It's given me a great deal of pleasure and my nephew. No. I live here with my wife. I have a son, but he doesn't live here. We came out of Mr. Datta's house and began walking. In the hope of finding a taxi, it was remarkably quiet outside, although it was not 7 p.m. There was no one in the sight except the two small boys who were out begging. One of them was singing the Sama Shangit and the other was playing a kanjani. As they came closer, Feluda began humming the same words. Help me, mother, for I have no one to turn to. A few minutes later, we reached the Baligan circular road and spotted an empty taxi. Feluda stopped singing and shouted, taxi, taxi, so loudly that it screeched to a halt almost immediately. As we got in, I caught the driver give Feluda a puzzled look. He was probably wondering how a shriveled old man like him could possibly have such powerful lungs. When the phone rang the next morning, I was brushing my teeth. So it was Feluda who answered it of the house of the bathroom. He told me that Nilmoni Babu had just called to say that Protul Datto's house had been burgled last night. All the case has been left untouched. What was missing was a number of old precious statues and the other objects of the art, and total value of which would be in the regions of 50,000 rupees. The theft had been reported by the press and the police had started their investigations. By the time we reached Protul Datto's house, it was 7 o'clock. Needless to say, this time we weren't without wearing any makeup. Just as we stepped in a man of rather generous proportions wearing a policeman's uniform emerged from the house. It turned out that he knew Feluda. Good morning, Felu Babu. He regretted us, grinning broadly and thumping Feluda on the back. I can see that it would take you long to find the way you here. Feluda smiled politely. Well, I had come, you see, since that's my job. No, but don't say it's your job. The job is ours. For you it's not more than a pastime, isn't it? Feluda chose to ignore this. He stayed instead. Have you been able to work anything out? Is it simply a case of burglary? Oh, yes. What could it be? But Mr. Datta is upset. He told us something about an old man and his nephew who had come to visit him yesterday. He thinks they're responsible. My throat suddenly felt dry. Perhaps Feluda had been too reckless this time. What if? But Feluda remained quite unperturbed. Well, then all you need to catch this old man and his nephew simple, he said. Oh, well said, returned the palm police officer. That's exactly the kind of remark an amateur detective in a noble must have made. Can we go into the house? Feluda asked, still determined not to take any notice of the jibes made by the officer. Yes, go ahead. Protul Datto was sitting in the same veranda. He was clearly far too preoccupied to pay any attention to us. Do you want to see the room where all the auction took place? Our friend from the police. Yes. We were taken to the drawing room upstairs. Feluda went straight to the balcony and leaned over its railing. Look, there's a pipe. True. In any case, the door couldn't be closed because the pant was still wet, so it was something like an open invitation. What time did it happen? At 9:45 p.m. Who was the first to realize? There is an old servant. Yes, make that bait. In that other room over there. He heard a noise apparently and came here to have a look. The room was totally dark, but someone knocked him out even before he could switch on the light. By the time he recovered sufficient to raise an alarm, the thief had vanished. Feluda frowned. I had come to recognize this frown pretty well. It usually means a new idea had occurred to him. I had like to speak to the servant, he said crisply. Very well. Mr. Datta's servant was called Bongshalushan. He still appeared in a state of shock. Where does it hurt? Feluda asked him, for he was obviously in pain. In the stomach, he croaked. Stomach? Did they hit you in the stomach?
Yes, sir. And what a powerful blow it was. I felt as though a bomb had hit my body. Then everything went dark.
When did you hear the noise? What were you doing?
I couldn't tell you the exact time, Babu. I was making the bed in Ma's room. She was in the next room doing her puja. There were two beggar boys singing in the street, but told me to give them some money. I was about to go when there was a strange noise in the room. It sounded as though something heavy was knocked over, so I came to see what was going on, and Vangshalochan could not say anything more. It seemed that the thief had broken into the house only a couple of hours after we had gone. Feluda said,
Thank you.
to Vangshalochan and therefore the officer, and then we left. Feluda began walking without even saying a vowel. His face was set, his eyes had taken a glint that meant he would definitely undo something. We soon left Mapradesh. As we were walking down the driveway towards the front gate, we both heard a strange noise, as though someone was tapping on a glass pane. I turned round and saw a small boy standing at a window on the first floor. It was he who was tapping on the window pane. Jhundu, I said.
Yes, I have seen him too.
Feluda replied. Feluda spent the afternoon scribbling in his famous blue notebook. I had learned by now not to worry about when he was writing, for I knew that whatever he wrote in his notebook was written in English using the Greek letters. I couldn't read it even I tried, and certainly Feluda wouldn't tell me if I asked. In fact, he had stopped talking to me completely. I didn't disturb him. He needed time to think, but he was humming a song under his breath. It was the same song that he had from the beggar boy singing. At about 5 p.m., Feluda broke his silence.
I'm going out for a few minutes.
He said,
I have to collect some enlargements of my photograph from the studio.
I was left all alone. Days were growing shorter. It grew fairly dark in the lace, and at an hour after the lift, the studio wasn't far from where we lived. And why was Feluda taking so long to come back? I hope he hadn't gone somewhere else without telling me. Maybe his photos weren't ready and he was being made to wait at the shop. The sound of the kanjani reached my ears, which was followed by the familiar song. Help me, mother, and I have no one to turn to. The same boys were singing in our street. I went and stood near the window. Now I could see both the boys. One of them was playing the kanjani and the other was singing. The one who was singing stopped and raised his face. Ma, please give me some money, Ma, he cried. I took a 50 paisa coin from my wallet and threw it out of the window. The boy picked it up just as it landed at his feet and a faint ching. Then he put it in his shoulder bag and walked on, picking up the song where he had left it. It started after him, profoundly puzzled. Our street wasn't particularly well lit, but when the boy had raised his face to beg for money, I had seen it quite clearly. There was an uncanny resemblance between the face and Jhundu's. No, I must not have made a mistake, I told myself. Even so, this was something I had to tell Feluda the minute he got back. He returned at 6:30. Looking cross, I had been right, and in thinking he had to wait in the shop.
I'll make a dark room of my own and develop my own prints from now on,
he declared.
The studio simply cannot be trusted to deliver on time.
He spread his all-in large pictures on the bread and began studying them. There's nothing on, he said. Isn't there?
No.
In that case, this whole business is more complicated than I thought.
Yes, that's true.
But do you actually believe that the young boy is involved in the burglaries?
He may well be.
But how can a boy of this age be strong enough to knock people out?
Who said it was a young boy who attacked Nilmoni Babu and Vangshalochan?
Oh, wasn't it? Feluda didn't answer me. He went back to examining the photos. I found him looking carefully at the enlarged vision of the photograph he had taken this morning and the imprint of the hand. You told me once you can read the palms, I said jokingly. Can you tell me how long the owner of the hand will live?
Stop that, Topsy. And here say, there's more than a complicated case. There is a sinister angle to it, which I have realized only recently, and it is horrific as the Anubis itself.
Feluda rang Nilmoni Babu the next day.
Hello, Mr. Sarnal. Your mystery has been solved. No, I haven't actually got the statue, but I think I know where it is. Are you free this morning? What is yours? Is he? Which hospital? All right, we'll meet him later. Thank you.
Feluda replaced the receiver quickly and dialed another number. I couldn't hear what he said, for in his lowered voice and practically whispered into the telephone, but I could tell that he was speaking to someone in the police.
Get ready, Topsy. We are going out. Yes, it's now.
At this moment, Feluda did something completely unexpected while reaching the Nilmoni Babu's house. There didn't seem to anyone else in the car apart from Nilmoni Babu himself and his driver, and said,
Follow that car. Follow that car.
He took his revolver from the inside pocket of his jacket and leaned out of the window and shot at the rear tires of the ambassador. The noise from the revolver and the bursting tires was absolutely deafening. Then I saw the ambassador lurch awkwardly, bump against the lamppost and come to a standstill. Nilmoni Shanal climbed out of his car and stood glancing around, looking furious. Feluda and I got out of the taxi and began walking towards him. Though the police jumped from the jeep and the same pump officer jumped out.
What the hell is going on?
Demanded Nilmoni Babu when he saw us.
Who else is with you in the car apart from the driver, Mr. Sarnal?
Feluda asked coldly.
Who do you think?
Nilmoni Babu shouted.
Didn't I tell you I was taking my nephew to the hospital?
Without a word, Feluda stepped forward and pulled the handle of one of the rear doors of the ambassador. The door opened and the small child shot out from the car, promptly attaching himself to Feluda's throat. Feluda might have been throttled to the death, but he wasn't just an expert in yoga, and he had learned in the jitsu and the karate too. It took him only a few seconds to twist the child's wrists and swing him over his head, finally throwing him down on the road. The child screamed in pain and made many hurt bumps into my mouth. The voice was not a little child's voice, it was a fully grown adult. It sounded hoarse and ridiculous. Feluda straightened his collar and said,
That imprint on his hand had made me even wonder. It couldn't be a child's hand, for it had been too many lines on it. A child hadn't have in such a more and smooth. However, the size of the palm was small. There could be just one explanation for it. So-called child was not a child but a dwarf. How old is your assistant, Mr. Sarnal?
40.
Nilmoni Babu whispered. His own voice sounded different.
You thought you were very clever.
Feluda went on.
Your plan was flawless, and your acting good enough to win an award. You told me your white tale of warnings in the hieroglyphics and then start a robbery. Then you had Protul Datto's house burgled and some of the processions became yours. Tell me, the boy we saw in your house was the other bigger boy, wasn't he? The one who used to sing?
Nilmoni Babu nodded in silence.
Yes, that boy used to sing.
Feluda continued,
And the door played the Khanjani.
Nilmoni Babu sighed.
The truth is,
He said,
that I had become obsessed with an ancient Egypt. I had studied that period in some depth. I couldn't bear the thought of Prothuldatu hanging onto those pieces of Egyptian art. I had to have them at any cost.
Well, Mr. Sarnal, you have now seen where greed and temptations can lead you. There is just one more thing I need to ask you.
Oh, what is it?
My reward?
Nilmoni Babu stared at Feluda blankly.
Reward? Yes, that statue of Anubis is yours.
Nilmoni Babu slipped his hand into his pocket and rather foolishly, then he brought it out, clutching a 4,000-year-old statue of Anubis, the Egyptian god of the dead. The stones it was studded with glittering in the sun. Feluda stretched an arm, looking towards the statue from Nilmoni Babu. "Thank you," he said. Nilmoni Babu swallowed, quite unable to speak. The police officer pushed him gently into the direction of the jeep.